Before we begin, please be advised that this show may contain some adult themes that may not be appropriate for all listeners. Use your discretion. Now, on to our show. Welcome to the Sip and Saga Society, where we cover histories, mysteries, and overall weird-ass shit. My name is Karina, and joining us today, we have, as always, Christina
Hello.
and our friends, Randi and Evan. I'm so excited to have all of y'all here. Yay.
So happy to be
Hey.
here.
Okay, so before we get to all of the histories, um, Evan, what are you sipping today?
Some stress relief tea. Stress relief and peppermint tea. Yeah.
Hell, I love that.
I need it.
All right, Christina, I see a Kit Kat and
I always have snacks. Um, I have my good old Dr. Pepper, my fountain drink from the gas station. And then I also have a strawberry Nutrl, which is a vodka seltzer that has real juice in it.
what a name. And now, Randi, what are you sipping?
I have a Dr. Pepper as well. Sadly, not a fountain version, but we do what we can. I have a glass of water, the last of the cold water in my fridge. And I'll be honest, what I really wish I had was the pumpkin spice latte from Starbucks. I know that that's not a popular thing right now, and I shouldn't want it, but I do. I had
Me
faith
too,
The
in
Randy.
universal feeling. Yeah.
Me too. I also want
And I
one.
want the pumpkin spice chai. I've been thinking about it.
Oh, I had it this week and it was delicious. It was everything I wanted. It really was so good.
I have so many drinks, seltzer water, still water, rum and coke. But my highlight of the day is I found this beverage at Sprouts or somewhere. By the Don't Quit brand. It's protein soda.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's how I felt about it. I am honestly really unsure. I feel weird about protein things. And like for some reason, I think it's odd that protein isn't like some sort of like milk related bev I don't know. I think it's weird. Where's the protein coming from in a soda? Like
Yeah,
where?
I'm suspicious.
Anyway, so I'm going to take one for the team and try it. Evan tried these, but Evan will eat anything for the sake of health. If it has protein in it, he'll just ingest it. He doesn't care
That
what it
is
tastes like.
true.
And I'm like, I value taste, quality over quantity, even when it comes to protein. I don't care. Anyway, it's the grape flavor.
Hmm.
Does it taste like anything?
It tastes like grape.
Yeah.
Like grape soda.
It
It's
tastes
like
like
that
grape
protein
soda.
powder that they add to coffee now, I think. It doesn't really have a flavor.
It's not like it has a weird like texture, but it's not too bad. Like
That's worse.
Is it like thick?
it
Like,
slightly, very
hmm.
slightly. Chris Randy
Randy
is
said,
not convinced.
she
Randy
said
is
no.
not convinced. But yeah. Well, you know what? Honestly, I usually am not one for the gimmicks, but I'm impressed by the Don't Quit protein soda in grape flavor because I did not try the other flavors.
So you would recommend?
I actually would, I think. But if the texture's too much for you, that I mean, sorry. But it's not, it literally is not that bad. I thought it was going to be like thick. I was worried it
Mhm.
was going to be syrupy.
Yeah,
It's not too
yeah.
bad. Well, I am super excited to announce a few fun things. Um, we will be starting our community circles this month. It should be October when I release this episode. As well as a book club once a month. And now we're going to be doing Randy's Corner. Well, Randy will educate us on things that we had questions about in previous episodes. Yay. So, Randy, what are you talking about today?
Oh, just the horrors of Christopher Columbus, something light and airy.
Nothing like starting light and airy with horrors.
I'm just so excited for this because, like,
Hmm.
I mean, for the listeners, this is Christina, and I'm totally outing myself, but like, I feel like I live under a rock. So I'm ready. I'm ready to hear everything.
While I don't have enough time today to go into all the sordid details of Christopher Columbus and the heinous crimes that he committed during his voyages, I do want to dispel any fanciful notion you might have of that man. So, let's go over what you think you know about Christopher Columbus and that holiday. So, we all know how this goes, right? In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. He had 3 ships and left from Spain. He sailed through sunshine, wind, and rain. He sailed by night, he sailed by day. He used the stars to find his way. A compass also helped him know how to find the way to go. 90 sailors were on board. Some men worked while others snored. When the workers went to sleep, the others watched the ocean deep. Day after day, they looked for land. They dreamed of trees and rocks and sand. October 12th, their dream came true. You never saw a happier crew. Indians, Indians, Columbus cried. His heart was filled with joyful pride. But India, the land was not. It was the Bahamas, and it was hot. The Araucawa natives were very nice. They gave the sailors food and spice. Columbus sailed on to find some gold to bring back home as he'd been told. He made the trip again and again, trading gold to bring to Spain. The first American? No, not quite, but Columbus was brave and he was bright. Okay, guys.
Yay,
Thank you.
Randy.
Thank you. That is a poem that I'm pretty sure every single kid, at least in my generation, learned. The first
I did
stanza.
not remember it.
Yeah,
I was
that's
just
why I read it.
thinking, I got taught this in 1492. Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and on the way he lost his shoe in 1492.
Oh, really?
That's the
So
Texas education system for you folks.
the abridged version.
Yeah. Yeah. The
So,
George W. Bush version.
I think that's the one
no
I
child
got.
left behind.
Yeah.
I was left behind.
Yeah.
So Columbus failed for years to secure funding. He found favor with the Spanish Queen Isabella and set out on his voyage in the hopes of doing 2 things: proving that the world was round and establishing new trade routes to India. This is when it happened. After sailing for weeks, he landed upon the shores of America where Columbus discovered the New World. He was in search of riches, science, and fame. With him, he brought opportunity, culture, and religion to the native savages inhabiting the land who didn't even know how to protect themselves. So, this is what the schools teach, right? That's the basic kind of story. Columbus came, he discovered, he was the first one. The natives were so happy to see him. They did all the things for him, okay? But what's the truth? That part's a lot less glamorous, okay? So Columbus wasn't actually known to be an astronomer or a scientist. He was the son of an Italian wool merchant who left Italy to find opportunity in Spain, where he really found it. Despite his stunning lack of education and resources, he was able to convince the Spanish regents to fund his trip in search of gold and to bring Christianity to the larger world. Scholars at the time didn't really believe that the earth was flat. Columbus's lack of funding and his funding issues in general actually came from the fact that he had calculation errors that underestimated the distance from Europe to the Far East. So let's just start there. He was not really equipped for the job that he was signing up for. You know, his resume lacked the proper credentials. Columbus never made it to the Far East, or even to North America, the America that we know and call the United States. It's common knowledge now that he landed in the Bahama Islands. In fact, in the 4 voyages he took, we know Columbus landed on at least 3 islands: Watlings Island, Cuba, and Hispaniola. Arawak is the term for the general group of indigenous people, and it describes a common language of the area from Venezuela through the Caribbean and Central America. It's important to note that the peoples of the Caribbean were somewhat used to new arrivals and exploration. There were complex indigenous societies that populated these areas. I mean, these were already hotspots of trade on the islands, okay? They were areas of culture. They were a far cry from the savage depiction of the natives that were later used by the US to encourage westward expansion, or the empty shores that greeted later settlers after the steep decline in native populations due to massacre and disease.
I wonder who
Columbus,
did the massacring and the
oh yeah,
diseasing.
yeah, he did. Why? Because he was driven by ideas of self-grandeur. He had unwavering confidence in his abilities. Okay, unwavering. Despite his grand lack of education, he had grand ideas of his abilities. When he landed on the shore of the Bahamas, he refused to accept that he hadn't reached Asia. He claimed that the Bahama Islands were India and that Cuba was China, with absolutely no evidence. And then when members of his crew disagreed, he forced them to sign a document saying that the expedition had arrived into the Far East so that he could send that over to the King and Queen of Spain.
Oh my God.
He was just
Yeah.
lying all over the place.
Yeah, he was wildly
Oh,
delusional.
and then like forcing people, like forcing their hand to like lie
Yep.
to him too. That is
Yep.
absolutely wild.
So, despite his insistence, the land and the people provided none of the known riches that Columbus sought, right? He was supposedly after gold. He was after the spices that they knew were in Asia, right? The spice railway, right? The Silk Road. That's what they were all looking for. He sailed aimlessly for weeks looking for the gold and spices, but he found none, despite understanding reassurances from the indigenous people. So reassurances from the indigenous people at the time were rife with communication issues, right? There were a lot of assumptions. There was sign language being used that was very difficult to interpret. They made no effort to learn the language of the native people.
Shocking.
They did take some prisoners on board to teach them their language, but they were not as successful in that endeavor. Faced with that reality, Columbus began working to have the really docile natives used as slave labor for profit. So 5 young male natives were brought onto the ship and then seized as cargo for the journey home. This is where you start to see the true nature of Christopher Columbus, because in an effort to ensure their compliance, he had 7 head of women brought to the ship. And I mean just their heads.
Ew.
Yeah.
Like for what purpose? Like why?
So once he had seized the 5 men that he had brought on board, like they had invited him onto the ship to show them things, right? These natives were very nice to them. They captured them to try and keep them as slave labor, and in order to keep them tame, they took the 7 heads of the women to parade in front of them, and keep them from doing anything out of line.
So it's like a scare tactic. Like, look what we're capable of.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yep. So one of his biggest points of contention came around converting the locals to Christianity. So the king and queen of Spain were devout Catholics at the time that this was all going on. And one of their main goals was to spread Christianity. But the subjugation of a people group by Catholic Spain could not be done if the people that they were trying to subjugate also were Christian. Okay? So when Columbus recognized that, he decided he wasn't going to bring Christianity to the islands at all because it would disrupt his ability to profit from their slave labor. So he basically told the church to bugger off.
Oh my God. And you know what? I had never even thought about it because throughout all of these like research, a lot of the reasons that they traveled out to colonize everything was for money and religion.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, we didn't convert them because then we could steal from them.
Right.
Because
Exactly.
that is
Yep.
the Christian way, I guess. I don't.
Uh, to make an enemy where there is none. I don't disagree with that. So, the true legacy of Christopher Columbus is that he did have a huge impact on the world. It's just not the one that you've been told. The first colonial settlement was on the island of Hispaniola, known today as Haiti and the Dominican Republic. There housed the Taino people, their name meaning good and noble, and they were characterized by happiness, friendliness, and a highly organized society. This island became the site of genocide perpetrated by Columbus and his brothers. He led this colony with sick sadism and in brutal conditions. I mean, he ruled with an iron fist. Beheadings and mutilation were standard in his treatment of island natives. He allowed the sale of young girls between 9 and 10 into sex slavery amongst the settlers on the island, and was known to give women to his crew as reward. And there are documented rapes of those women from his crew members. There are many examples of his brutality, but there are two brief extreme examples that I think kind of just capture what it was like. Columbus's brother cut out a woman's tongue for reminding Columbus that he started out as the son of a humble weaver. Columbus then congratulated his brother for defending the family honor. In another story, he ordered a boy's hand to be nailed in public to the dock spot where he had pulled a trap from the river and caught a fish. So, this was all during his first voyage. So when he returned from his first voyage, the Spanish government was both amazed and horrified by his work. In 1493, the regents mandated the respectful treatment of the Indians, I'm air quoting here, and made salvation the primary focus of any further exploration into the New World without coercion or brutality. So these Catholic regents were like, Columbus, let's,
We're Christians,
yeah,
Columbus.
let's get it
Stop
together.
killing people.
Mm-hmm. However, Columbus found his opportunity around this directive when the crew fought a warlike people on their second voyage who they labeled as cannibals. So they were able to say that this was a just war in which they captured these indigenous people. And this was the first known shipment from Columbus of souls sent into slavery to Castile with the written intention of providing language to the people so that they could learn to have the faith of the Catholics. So through slavery, they would be saved. His brutality only continued. In response to finding unrest in Hispaniola after his dealings around the other islands, Columbus ordered a crackdown on natives, which resulted in mass slaughtering, and he had the dismembered bodies of those killed paraded through the streets. Columbus made 2 more voyages. Each was worse than the last.
God, Randy. No.
So there's this argument that we shouldn't judge Columbus by the standards of today,
No,
but the culture of the time.
we should judge him
However,
harshly.
we should judge him harshly. I don't disagree. However, in that time, he was considered a tyrant, a murderer, and unreasonably cruel by the people of that period. After taking dominion over Hispaniola, complaints were made by the white locals and various missionaries on the overall comportment of Columbus. This led to backlash by the Spanish monarchs. So Columbus, along with two of his brothers, were brought back to Spain in chains to stand trial for their treatment of the indigenous peoples. The initial delivery of slaves to Spain were ordered to be released and returned to their homelands. Columbus was stripped of his highest titles, and his downfall was humiliating. Despite this, his brothers were released, and a fourth voyage was authorized with the caveat that Columbus could never return to Hispaniola or his original settlement. Despite Spain's suppression of this information, sometime in the mid-18th century, documents came to light that exposed the harsh treatment of the indigenous peoples by the Spanish and tarnished their reputation, okay? So estimates say of the population say that in just 60 years, the Taino people were so devastated by New World disease, slavery, and slaughter that numbers reduced by over 90%. While there was no census done on the island when Columbus first arrived, academics believe the native population was between 250 and 350,000. Only a few hundred were left after those 60 years, and the culture nearly extinct. So I'm just going to give you guys a moment to absorb that.
That is so sad. Like, they couldn't have, I mean, I know we said this previous, but like they literally couldn't have picked anybody else. I don't want to say to like represent that, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
him of all people, like yeah, he's just,
Again, with no credentials. I mean, this man was like making me the captain of a ship, honestly, because I took a sailing class in Boston one time. You know, like that's insane.
It's always just some guy, you know? And they just gave him too much power. And look at what he did. Imagine being so terrible that your country has to, the whole country has to hide how terrible you were because
Mm-hmm.
they were so ashamed of you. And they had to change the rules for the whole colonization thing because you were so awful.
Yeah. But I think the only thing that does make me a little like happy about some of this research is knowing how much the regents were like, no, don't do this. This is not what you're supposed to do. And he just kept lying to him. And it was like once they found out that he was lying, they like pulled his little butt cheeks back and was like, let's get you taken care of. If that were happening today, I do kind of like, I kind of stand those regents because while they should never have sent him back and they really turned a blind eye to things and they got worse later on, I I really just, you know, I feel like a lot of that would have been prevented. Now, I
Wow.
bet you're thinking this really shouldn't be a holiday. Who let that happen? So, while that distinguishment lies with President Benjamin Harrison in 1892, Columbus' history had already been rewritten by Washington Irving. Prior to publication in 1828, Irving was invited by Spain in Madrid to translate documents from Columbus's voyage that had come out. Like they were just finding these documents. So upon reviewing the materials, he decided more was needed and set out to write the biography of Columbus. This is where fact and fiction mix. So the story that was written was a telling of science against the antiquated church. Remember, this was being written, you know, hundreds of years after Columbus had already done his dealings, okay? This is the 1800s. So Irving embellished the story in places with dramatic retellings of what he thought was plausible and glossed over others that didn't quite fit that narrative of science against church. So this is where the myth was born. By the end of the 1800s, the harder truths of Spain's voyage were forgotten. Spain's New World settlements were declaring independence, and Spanish claims on exploration were being written out of the history books. Enter in Paris World's Fair in 1889 that made Europe the center of conversation and pushed America to stage their own event, the true competitive American spirit, right? The Chicago World Fair was set for October 1892 and coincided with the 400th anniversary of Columbus's voyage. Life-size replicas of the three ships were made and added to the Midway. Dozens of depictions of Christopher Columbus, and I mean dozens, like we're talking like 71 portraits, I'm pretty sure, of Christopher Columbus were hung in galleries marking the voyage, the landing, him trading, the successful air quote discovery of the Americas. To make things more complicated, anti-immigration and racism against Italians was a widespread issue. In 1891, there was a mass lynching of 11 Italian Americans in New Orleans after the death of a New Orleans police chief, and whose murder was supposedly at the hands of the city's Italian residents. So this threatened the diplomatic relations with Italy, and in an effort to appease the country, President Benjamin Harrison proclaimed Columbus Day as a national holiday for the year of 1892 at the Columbian Exposition at the Chicago, the world's largest fair. And he also put in the Pledge of Allegiance that day. He only meant it to be for that 1 year, but Italian Americans continued to celebrate the holiday, and in 1934, it was named a federal holiday. Now, this proved to be a strong solution at the time. It eliminated Spain from the conversation of exploration. The World Fair showed American ingenuity and drive, and it brought Italy and Italian Americans more into the American fold. The only problem? It's all a lie. So, now over 500 years later, the history of Columbus is still distorted, and that myth continues to be perpetuated. Thanks for listening, guys. That's all I got.
That's crazy. I mean, that's like this day and age of like social media, right? Like people go online, they post something or write something heinous, and it just takes that little bit amount of people to be like, oh my gosh, yeah, I totally believe that. Or like someone says something, the celebrity died, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, rest in peace. Like no one is checking anything, or like you said, like you're just letting facts slip through. And like, what is his name, Irving, he part of the problem too. He's a
Washington
big,
Irving.
yeah.
That's really interesting because he's a novelist. So like,
Right.
why would you hire a novelist to write a
Yeah.
biography? Like that should be the first red flag.
But I love that he was like, I think this may have happened.
Yeah.
So
I'm
I'm gonna
gonna
put it in.
spice this up a little bit.
I'll have you know, I actually fact checked that one. I like went in and I was like, did Washington Irving really do this? And I found it and I was shocked.
I had no idea. That's crazy.
All of Randy's sources will be in our episode notes, by the way.
And that
Just
includes the whole first printed version of like Columbus's first voyage. He had a diary that was printed. It's a document that'll take you, you'll get to read it in his own words what he thought of the natives that he found.
oh my God, Randy, why would I want to read that?
You really
I'm
don't.
sorry you had to read that. I can literally only imagine what Columbus thought. Mm.
It didn't start off so bad.
It wasn't bad in the beginning.
Before the voyage.
I really just want to be like, of course, a little delusion and a dick, and you can make things happen. You too can sail for the Americas.
I'm already here, Randy. I made it.
Okay, well, go to the Bahamas then.
Also, thank you so much, Randy. I love that. I love learning.
You're
That was
welcome.
terrible and great.
I hope you feel educated.
I
Truly
do.
horrifying.
Yeah, exactly.
And this was for October, right? So,
Yes,
go.
horrified. During our last episode, we touched on the story of Roanoke, the colony that disappeared. And in the spirit of the spooky season, we decided to cover the history of this disappearing colony, as well as theories of what may have happened and all the creepy things that have been experienced in the area since. Like I said earlier, all of our sources are in our notes, so you can look and see where we got all of these things, these terrible, terrible stories. I'm still reeling about Columbus. Like, I knew he was bad, but like, you didn't know how bad, and then you didn't know, like,
I think it's like after finding out how bad he was, and then everything that followed suit after
well,
that.
and then you're like in school, like, yeah, Columbus, the Santa Maria.
Hmm.
Yeah, and like you're like, yeah,
Ugh,
this dude's freaking awesome because he found America and he's
he
not
found the
awesome.
Bahamas.
Yeah, and insisted that it was something else.
He was a lost man, and he was too proud to admit that he was lost.
He had gaslit himself so hard he needed everyone else to follow.
That's exactly what happened.
He
Okay.
made his Delulu become Tralulu, okay?
He said, I said we are in Asia. Now sign the paper.
Yeah, he's like, I got notes. I got receipts. So,
Remember?
yeah, you remember when you signed this paper? Yeah.
I'm gonna start doing that. So by the time Elizabeth I became queen, Spain and Portugal had already explored much of the New World and were on their way to establish their own civilizations on this side of the world. As we have discussed at length, everybody was really into the idea of this new space because colonization was great for trade, religion, and just overall power. England was already behind and they needed to get going. Because, like, at this point, Spain's already been in Mexico and, in all of South America, ruining everything. So we're falling behind. And as Randy said earlier, also at this point, um, Spain was more focused on religion because Columbus had fucked everything up. And they're like, we're working on being one with the people. And then and
We're
England was
actually
like,
not that bad.
yes. But England was like, no, we need money because we need to take it from Spain. If we have it, Spain doesn't. So more for England, less for Spain and France. So 1578, Elizabeth I grants Sir Humphrey Gilbert a charter to explore and colonize these new territories that had been unclaimed by Christian kingdoms. Humphrey Gilbert claimed St. John's in Newfoundland as the first English territory in 1583, but then he got lost at sea and never returned. So nothing happened with that. Elizabeth did not let the loss of Humphrey keep her from her goals. She divided the charter that she had given Humphrey Gilbert into two. I personally had no idea what a charter was because I was in high school a long time ago. So I found an AP US History Review Guide on the internet. It is also in the sources. So if you guys have an APUSH exam coming up soon, it's available. But a charter is a formal document that outlines the rights, privileges, and responsibilities granted to a person. And it basically just says that they have the permission from their own governing body to be there. And I just don't understand how this would have any like say on what you are doing in my space. You know what I mean? I don't acknowledge you as a country. Why does this mean anything to me? I guess it only means things to like Spain, Portugal, all the countries you recognize. But like for the most part, it's like, why does this matter to me? But whatever. It's basically the permission from the state to be there.
Wait, I thought that the charters though also were made on the ships so that when they would disembark it they would use the charters as like the governmental backbone for how they would establish society.
No, that's what it is. It's like we're representing this country in establishing our society here.
Okay.
But it's just basically the permission they have from the state or from the government saying,
So it's their permission slip? Maybe I completely forgot that part.
well, that's what the A push guide said.
Really? It's a permission slip. No, I love this
It
information. I'm
essentially
gonna
is.
digest this. I'm gonna
But
digest this.
well, the part that I didn't understand is she was like in the book it said like um she split the charter up and I'm like, well, it's just your permission slip. Like, why do we need to split it up? You could just do a new one. Like this, I don't understand, but whatever. So she, so he's lost, and she gives the permission to two other guys, Adrian Gilbert, and he was assigned to find the Northwest Passage to Asia, and then Sir Walter Raleigh, who was given all the area under that. So he really didn't want that area because he was like, Spain's already there and took everything. But he was, that was his job, so he was gonna do this. But just because you have permission from the state to be there doesn't mean they give you money to do anything. Walter Raleigh was a charismatic soldier, courier, and explorer. He received this charter in 1584, and it was to explore remote, heathen, and barbarous lands, as well as countries and territories that were not possessed by any Christian people. He was given 7 years to establish a settlement, and he wanted it to be successful. And if that secured some favor with the queen, well, that would be cool too. He still needed to finance this because, like I said, just because you have the permission from England, they don't own that land, so we don't have a ton of money to give you for that exploration. And also, if you have a colony, you're going to need to fund the colony overall. Like, just getting there is an endeavor, and then to maintain supplies from England is also going to cost you money. He relied on private investors and he promised them that they would get a great return on their investment. He had never been there. So I'm glad he feels real strong about this. Walter Raleigh stayed in England to work on the finances while he sent his most loyal captains and explorers to scout this new world. He finally had enough money to send Philip Amadas and Arthur Barlow on an exploratory mission to find a place to settle their first colony, as well as a reason to keep investors investing. One of my favorite things about researching this was that, like, I love that I can really get into like the details of colonization and how terrible it was for everybody. Because I do not think you get the details. I don't think that we really understand how terrible all of this was.
For literally everybody.
Yeah, it all sucks.
Yeah.
On July 5th, 1584, they landed in North Carolina where they found the shores were shallow and full of sandbars, which were difficult to navigate through. The adventurers found Roanoke Island in mid-July. And the way that it's located, it's like kind of between some sandbars with some trees and stuff and the ocean. So it's like kind of nestled sort of inland, but still within the water. It's a little island where you could get ships over there. The issue was because of how shallow the water is, you can't have that deep of a boat getting in there because you'll get stuck. It's going to be too shallow for the boat to get through. So it was a great place because they could protect it, but it was also kind of a hard place to get into. But it was a like from the way that they saw it, they could trade, defend it, and explore from that island. And it was easy to protect, which makes sense. Like if I'm going to be starting a place, I don't know where I'm at, I could protect this island easier than I could be not on land. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm just very confused. Isn't that age-old adage about building your house on the sand a bad one.
Well, as we will see, Randy, some of us don't think at all when establishing a colony other than protecting ourselves from Spain and trading and safety. Because they did not really think about fresh water or anything else. This place had various types of trees, so their priority was, okay, we need to find resources for the investors to invest, and one of them was there's a ton of trees so we can get lumber, so we can use this to build our house. So they were like, okay, there's already wood here. I wonder if they just didn't want to walk into like the new world. They're like, let's just stay here.
Like they were terrified of those native people that they were told to be terrified of compared
And
to
they were
how
like, we can
they
just
built.
stay on the island, protect it here. We don't have to move. But there was dark and rich soil on the island, so they were like, oh, look, it's fertile. They described it as the most plentiful, fruitful, and wholesome in the world. But this was also part of the report that they had written in order to get some funding, so I'm sure they padded it a little bit. They did report their challenges, though. Like I said, it was difficult to navigate the shallow waters because it was hard for the ships to get close to the island. And food was also an issue because it could only grow as well as the environment allowed. And as Randy has kind of alluded to, a lot of this island is full of sand and not great for planting environment. And it's also because it's the summer, hot, swampy, and full of bugs. So they're all getting malaria. And they were like, this is it. This is the place.
It's like the way that you explained that was funny. Sorry. You said this is it. This is how we're gonna live our life.
It's just so unnecessary.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just so wildly unnecessary. And can I also just say that I am loving the fact that you're telling me that they went in and they were like, we got to put the shareholders first. And so that's what they did. They were like, fuck our lives. We gotta get the investors on board. Like these are
I
the
honestly
original
feel like
finance
that was
pros.
it because like they just found the first island they could. I mean, they did travel along the coast, but like I feel
No,
like they
they're
found this
finance
island and they
pros
were like, we could
through and
protect it.
through.
It's warm. There's trees. We could hunt. We got this. And they were like, let's go.
Oh wow.
I don't know what they were thinking, Randy. I don't know if they were thinking.
I'm telling you, they were thinking like a finance bro. That's it. Like I can just see them out there in their little like vests. Like, have they invented paddle boards yet? Like,
Ah! Identical. I love it. I'm just envisioning them in suits paddleboarding
yeah,
though.
I know. I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm done. I'm done.
Okay, focusing. On July 13th, 1584, 84. I was going to say 84th. They raised the English banner and declared the island under the domain of Queen Elizabeth I. Also, when I think of Queen Elizabeth I do not think about colonization at all. So this has like kind of messed with my brain a little bit. I didn't realize she was out there too.
What do you think of like Shakespeare?
Yeah, or that one movie. So I honestly just think about her being the daughter of Henry VIII. And I'm like, that's not even near America. It's not even near the New World. That's crazy. Anyway, before they even landed on the shores of North America, they noticed signs of human society from the smoke of inland fires to the canoes resting on the shores. The natives approached these explorers with gifts of friendship, and and the English also extended their own gifts. Chief Wininga, the leader of the Secatoan people, was open to interactions with these explorers initially because he felt that they had tools that would help his people against rivals. Which makes sense. So you're like, you got great technology. I could see how this would benefit me. Barlow's writings highlight how amazing the Algonquin society was from their careful planning, like from their carefully planned fields to their fishing skills. So they had like a really well-functioning society. They knew how to work with the resources of the land, but the chief knew that the Europeans were risky and he was uncertain about what they would bring to his people. Like he was open to working with them, but he was also still pretty hesitant. The explorers returned to England in 1584 with samples of the local crops, maps, as well as their observations. They highlighted the potential specifically for profit in order to entice investors, you know, as bros do. Based on the report from Armadas and Barlow, Raleigh decided on Roanoke for the location of the first colony. He never actually visited the location before making this decision. He even appointed his cousin, Sir Richard Grenville, to lead the first colony expedition in 1585. Grenville,
Elizabeth wouldn't let him go though.
really?
Yeah, they had
See,
like
this is why
a
we keep Evan here.
so they had what's presumed to be a relationship. It was never
That's why I knew that
confirmed.
name was familiar to me, but I couldn't
Yeah.
remember where it came from. So she was like, "This is your hobby, but you can't
Yeah, but you
go."
stay here. Yeah. She wouldn't let him. And so it just created friction. And he was like a very, like you noted, charismatic dude. He was a poet, also. So,
That's the guy I want to fund my colonization.
right. Yeah. The liberal arts major. Yeah. Yeah.
Ev-
So,
Evan, I love the knowledge you bring because I'm like,
thanks.
wow. Every time I'm like, wow. Because I usually just like narrow in on this and I
Yeah.
avoid everything around it. Okay.
Thanks. Yeah.
No, it's great. That makes sense. So she was like, you can't go.
Yeah.
But that makes sense how, like, if this was my project, I'm gonna send my closest friend, so like my cousin.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Exactly.
Raleigh sends his cousin, Richard Grenville, to lead the first colony expedition in 1585. He was to establish a permanent settlement on Roanoke Island, and that was to be the beginning of English expansion in the New World. He had 7 ships and over 600 men. There were soldiers, skilled laborers, and scientists included in those 600. There was even an accomplished mathematician. And I was like, why? On the rugged terrain. But he was there to document the resources. So he was there to like see and be a historian. They also sent an artist, John White, to capture the landscapes and the indigenous people. And then I remembered that, yeah, that's who drew all the drawings that we can see now. The settlers arrived in Roanoke Island in July 1585, where they immediately began unloading and constructing a fort. They created this fort in a place that was easily defendable and close to waterways. They had central storage area for supplies, livable spaces, and lookout points for soldiers to keep watch. And although 600 men came on the journey, only 100 would stay and start the colony. Sir Richard Grenville was returning to England. He was like, I will go start this colony for you, but I am not staying. But before they left, they had to wait for their boat to be repaired. So what does Grenville do? But explore the local village like a dumb bitch. He goes out there to explore the local village, just hang out with these guys. And then suddenly, someone's silver cup goes missing. So they were like, okay, natives, give us back our stuff. And they were like, we didn't take your cup. And they were like, okay, we're going to burn down the village. And they did. And they also destroyed all their crops. So after he was done burning the village, he was like, I gotta go. And he left. And he left Ralph Lane to be the governor of the colony. And I literally was like, typical. You could have just stayed at home, but you had to go and burn down somebody's whole entire town. You could have just minded your own business. Anyway, for no reason. Ralph Lane was the new governor of the colony, but he was a military man and he was huge on discipline and order. But most of the settlers were artisans and just laborers. It was believed that discipline was going to be the only thing to ensure the survival of the colony. So the governor focused on defending the fort and exploring for resources. They prioritized military endeavors versus securing adequate food. The, sel- the, the settlers did make sure to use the abundant pine and cedar to create housing that they needed. They had to search for drinking water and find the best land for farming. They did also bring pigs and chickens with them. But it was also, unfortunately, summer. So the heat was in full force and it was swampy and the bugs were everywhere. There were minimal freshwater sources because even the rainwater was slightly salinated because it's an island surrounded by seawater. It's just all seawater. It's all salty. But nobody wrote that in the reports, I'm sure. Although the surrounding forests were dense and full of resources, they were still full of unknown dangers because there's like indigenous people, we don't know who's our friend or our foe, and there's also unknown animals. And also at this time, they're so superstitious. So you have to remember like there's also monsters out there. The climate was new to everyone and it was hard to survive in this completely new environment. The land was fertile, but these men weren't even farmers, and the European seeds they kept trying to use didn't make it in the sandy soil. They like weren't using the local crops to try to grow food. They had brought their own seeds and they were like, this is what we're gonna use.
Now listen, I wanna just say again, this goes back to what I said on the last podcast. The resources were there. They just did not know what to do. Why did they send these people? I don't understand how they picked them. Wait, did you do research on that? Because I would actually like to know. How did they pick these people?
Well, when we get more into Jamestown, it was the poor, so there was no vetting. I
Mm.
don't know about these specific people other than Grenville, who is the cousin, but I'm not 100% sure. But we mean we can
I'm just saying.
let me
It
write it
astounds
down.
me. It astounds
No,
me.
there was no like testing, there was no licensure required. It was literally just like this guy's gonna go.
I was gonna say it seems like very like, oh, these people are just like disposable. You know what I mean? Like, like I don't really care too much about them. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I think that's what it was, is that Spain picked like their best and most trained people and they like had special people to do this exploring.
mhm.
And England was just, well, Raleigh's there, like he can pick a guy. They're inept with the farming. So their initial survival relied on the relationships with the native people. And initially the tribes were hospitable but cautious. The Secatoan people provided them with enough corn to survive the winter when they got there, right? The colonists had used it all by October. They got there like in June, July. They traded with the locals, but quickly had many misunderstandings and ultimately violent encounters. By the following spring, tensions were high, and Chief Wininga did not trust the English. Rightfully so. They were already struggling to make it without the support of the indigenous people, and it was looking worse. It was looking like a worse situation than it already was. Like they were already starving, and now the indigenous people are like, no more handouts for you. I was not surprised by a lot of this, but I'm just mad about all of it. By the winter of 1585, nobody was willing to offer the colonists food. They scraped by through hunting and fishing, but malnutrition was rampant. They were weak and easily susceptible to disease. Mortality rates were high and morale was low. They also had no medical practitioners in the colony.
I mean, come on. Come on. How did they pick these people? I'm just saying. Questions need to be asked.
I mean, not well, is regardless of how they did it, it wasn't a good system. I want to be like, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. I understand this is a new environment. But like as we will see and as we have learned through our Jamestown endeavor, they went through Roanoke and had the stats from Roanoke and were like, okay, the seeds don't work here. And yet they continue doing the same shit for why?
Karina, I also want to remind you, though, that this is the same country that has invaded so many other countries. Okay, it's not like they don't have experience colonizing wild places, right? I'm air quoting for everybody who can't see me. Barbaric landscapes, okay? They've been in Asia, they've been in Africa. What they're doing is irresponsible. This is irresponsible.
Somebody called Adult Protective Services. This is not a healthy environment for these colonists.
I'm just saying, this was a death sentence that they were doing. That's really what this was.
Obviously, things aren't going well for the colonists, and they barely made it through their first winter, and they're not really sure if they're going to make it. And finally, in June of 1586, Sir Francis Drake shows up to save the day with captured refugees, slaves, equipment, and supplies for the colony. The men and Governor Lane were like, we can't do this, and we're gonna die if we stay here. So they left 15 men behind to hold down the fort, and they returned to England. And yeah, and I know you guys are like, wow, Karina, why did you include this if this is not the lost colony? Mostly because I didn't even know there was a first colony. I didn't realize. I thought the Lost Colony were like the very first people to try to do this. I didn't realize what the first initial endeavors were. And also thought it was a good representation of like how inept they really were. Like we gave you enough corn to last our village for winter, the whole winter, and you ate it by October. What were you doing with the corn?
Well, it
I
also
just,
goes to show that they weren't agricultural people. They came from London,
yes.
likely, which was a very modern city at the time. It was like very advanced and had technology, and to go from that to a completely rural, like wild wilderness environment. I mean, it's a wonder that any of them survived, honestly.
I mean, that's 100% true. Like, it's amazing anybody made it to the end. That they even built a fort was impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely like a culture shock. I mean, I didn't even think about it like that from going from that to like living off the grid, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right, but also, who sent them there? Back to Randy's question, and
Yeah,
who
yeah.
chose these people? Like, but I guess that makes sense. The people that are going to be more equipped to work in the rural areas are in the rural areas. They're not going to London on the regular. So who else are you going to
Yeah.
send? And I'm pretty sure they probably did send a lot of the poor, and I'm sure they sent a lot of ex-soldiers as well. So a lot of the guys would be homeless after they came back from like wars and stuff. And this was one of the ways that they were able to make some money. And what else were they doing? They were unhoused and like that was a lot of where the explorers came from was like ex-soldiers.
And they would also send people who had political favor. So it was like a bunch of Nepo babies. Um,
This is what we're doing for fun.
yeah. So a bunch of Nepo babies also. Um, they're probably the last demographic I would want to be outside with, like trying to survive.
In general,
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah, just
In the
outside
vicinity
in
of.
They don't want to
nature
see a
with.
bee.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, there's a show on HBO and it's like these guys go back to like 1800s times and it's three different families. It's like on the frontier or something or back on the frontier. And they're like one of the families is a gay couple with like two tablet kids. Like they're obsessed. Like they have like a high-tech home and they go into this cabin and they have to like slaughter their own animals and milk their own goats and stuff and it's fascinating, honestly. It's amazing. But
Is
in the
it
same vein, like, oh, go ahead.
reality? Like,
Oh, it's
Uh,
like a reality show. Like it's
okay.
three different families. I have found it super fascinating. And I'm just thinking frontier times. I'm like, even then, technology was way more advanced than it was in the 1500s.
Yeah.
And I like can't even fathom just leaving my little town of London and being like, all right, have a society
Yeah.
with no training, no help, and nobody knows how farming works in this new place. And apparently nobody knows how farming works anyway because they were not farmers.
I mean, they went from society with like rules and, I mean, it was literally Lord of the Flies. Like they went to a totally unstructured, not, you know, the whole like interrupting and colonizing and slaughtering the indigenous people aside, like they had no idea what they were doing. They had no guidelines, no like social structure, um, nothing. It was just,
I was like, they weren't socialized
yeah,
as
They
kids.
were the barbarians. I mean,
yeah.
They
they
were, and they were like, everyone else is the problem. We're fine.
It really, yeah. I mean, they were barbaric. Yeah. That's a good way to word it.
I kind of feel bad for them thinking about it. I mean, not really, but I kind of do.
I feel bad. Okay, guys, unfortunately, we have reached the part of our I'm very not sober. But Christina and I just made a commercial and it was like this podcast is like if your drunk teacher told you a story. And I was like, we've reached that part of this. I think that is one of the biggest parts of this podcast for me and why I decided to tell this story in the first place is because I think it's so easy to hate the colonists. Like you want okay, let's okay. Like I want to be mad at them, right? Like you're like, oh, you showed up. And yes, we should be mad at Columbus, 100%. Columbus was an issue. He wasn't great. But like they were just people. And most of them were just sent on this journey because people wanted to make money off of their backs. Because people wanted to make money off of their lives and they were worth more to them dead but in this new world than alive and poor or alive and a soldier or alive wasting space when you could be exploring the new world
I
for my bankroll.
maintain, I maintain that other people are the scariest thing. Like if
Oh,
I
people are scary.
like when I watch horror movies, I like a good supernatural thriller, but I maintain that movies like The Strangers,
Oof, yeah.
that that one will always keep me up at night because it could be anyone at my door. It's people are terrifying.
Oh, 100 I feel like the older I get, the more I am hesitant to be around other people. Like I don't know if that's worth the risk that I would have.
Mm.
Struggle. But no, and I'm a huge true crime person and my favorite shows to watch are the ones where it's like they had the perfect marriage until she found out he was actually stealing body parts from dead people or like whatever. That is
That's
one of them.
strangely specific. Okay, I was like, that was you just had that one loaded.
I always do. No, I just really like the ones where I don't know why I like this. Maybe I'll unpack it in therapy one day. But like the ones where they're like they were married to this person and didn't realize they were a bank robber for 10 years.
Mm.
And I'm like, what? So I really firmly believe like you can't trust anybody. Hi guys.
Yeah. I mean, I think anybody's cynical, but most people, I'll give you most people.
Okay, here's the thing. I trust people individually and one-on-one as like a one-on-one basis.
Oh, as
Like,
a mob, you cannot trust.
no, mobs,
No.
we cannot trust mobs.
Animal Farm taught me anything. No.
I want to make that a
No.
sticker. If Animal Farm taught me anything. You
Honestly,
cannot trust farms.
that book, sixth grade, revolutionized me. Honestly, that book radicalized me.
It's a
Those
great
pigs,
book.
it is. It is. It really is.
It's so good. Yeah.
I really got the metaphor there.
I don't know
Yeah.
why I really would love that as a sticker. Like in small print, if Animal Farm taught me anything, and in big
Yeah.
print, you cannot trust mobs.
And I just want a pig standing up on that, because at the end when they stand, I'm like, this is too much.
Why are they standing? Okay, let's finish. We have 2 more pages. Raleigh did receive another charter, so he got another permission slip to go out of the country. And even though the first Roanoke was kind of a hot mess, they still let him try again. But it makes sense because Elizabeth was his lady. He could do anything. The plan was to
Except
leave.
flirt with someone in her court.
I
I
was
Did
mean,
not
about to say
happen.
that's what he got kicked out for, right? Like,
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
infuriated her.
Yeah, yep.
the plan was to establish the city of Raleigh, not in Roanoke again, because they were like, obviously that did not work. But we're going to go more northern into the Chesapeake Bay area. The plan was to establish a permanent settlement. So they were like, okay, the first one didn't work. I don't know, I think he did love her.
Oh, sorry. That was directly for Evan because I didn't want to interrupt your flow, Karina.
I don't even know where I'm at. Sorry, guys. This is what we all signed up for. Lightly drunk Karina. I did a double shot of whiskey. So sorry, but not enough to stop.
Fun.
I know, I'm partying hard. Mostly because Evan's gone and I'm like, why not? I'm hanging out with all my friends. Randy, you crack me up. Okay. Raleigh made John White, the guy that was the painter for the first settlement, the governor of this new attempt at colonization. So, which I think is pretty smart. He was there, he saw how Governor Lane did. He was like, let's not do that again. And he decided to emphasize cooperation, planning, and stability. They decided to bring artisans, wise. This time they brought farmers as well as craftsmen. But they also decided to bring 17 women and 11 children to emphasize that they were here to build a community. That it wasn't just like a bunch of guys trying to make it in the woods, bro trip, but they were here to like make something that was going to last. Women and children did bring with them vulnerability, especially with the challenges of the new frontier, but they also gave settlers something to work towards and fight for because you're more likely to want to defend. And I'm this way too. Like, say whatever you want about me, but if you talk about Evan, sorry, Evan. Also, I will fight for Evan. That is on here. But also, if you talk about my husband, Evan, I will cut you. So, me threatening everyone who listens to us. Anyway, but right, so like you're more likely to fight for like your family than for yourself. And that's going to push you to want to survive more and want to make it here. Although his first intentions were to settle elsewhere, John White and the rest of the settlers decided that they wanted to just use the existing structures that were already left behind by the 1585 colony. And also, like we mentioned before, it was really difficult to get through those very shallow waters with all the sandbars and stuff with their really big boats full of all of these colonizers, settling people. The initial weeks of settlement were peaceful, with one of the indigenous interpreters helping reestablish trade between the natives and the colonists. And so they were like, okay, there's new European people, we'll try again. They cooperated for a short time, but the memories of the previous colonists were still fresh in their minds, which would be hard not to have the memories when they burned down your village. I don't know. The colonists kept demanding food and tools, which the natives could not continue to just give away to them because they also needed to sustain their own societies. So then they just kind of had a lot of tensions, which makes sense because some of us don't want to work and want to just depend on everybody else to have handouts. Not naming names.
Nepo babies.
So the tensions were already high, and the breaking point came when the English attacked a hostile village, quote unquote. But it was actually a village of friendly people that had been friends with the Europeans, and they just burned their fucking town down. So even the Governor White admitted that they had been deceived for the savages. They were our friends. And all I'm saying is if you're going to burn down a village, fact check maybe. Make any endeavor to try, like at all. Anyway, so it wasn't going well, even for try two. And within 2 months, everyone could see that without extra supplies from England, they were not going to make it. They pressured John White to get additional supplies and help. He didn't want to go because his family was still in the colony, but it was easy to see that without more supplies or food, they were just going to die. They were not going to make it. The choice was obvious. And in late August 1587, he left Roanoke to return to England, hoping that when he got there, he would be able to convince Sir Walter Raleigh and other investors to help the colony. That's the thing. It's not just like he can go and there's guaranteed you're going to get supplies. He still has to convince investors to give them money to get supplies. And meanwhile, the settlers are left on this island across the world just trying to make it on their very limited resources and just resilience. Good luck because they ain't got no doctor. It's just them. So we will see what Mr. John White gets when he gets back to the Roanoke Island, Raleigh City. I don't know, guys. I had a Jack and Coke and a protein soda. For the record, after you drink like half of it, it gets weird. There is a little bit of like a vanilla whey taste. So at least I'm not lying to you guys. You got the full review. I only drank half of it. I will not drink the rest.
That's low star.
Maybe a
That's
two and a half
low aura.
because like if I was at a party and I was just sipping, I would drink it, but like it does have a light whey taste. And with that, I'm ending our part one of the Roanoke adventure. Woo! But I'm excited to see what the next part brings because this one has been a doozy. It's been fun in a terrible way. I learned so
Yeah.
much.
It that period in history in England is the early modern era. And it's the early modern era because that's really when historians like pinpoint the beginning of like capitalism. So you really can see it with like a lot of what we've talked about today.
Oh, for sure. I feel like just the emphasis on the resources being the main focus on most of the
The
adventures and the human
shareholders.
life.
Yeah, the
The
Yeah,
people
shareholders.
themselves being a resource, being like an
the money, where
item.
the money comes from.
Yeah.
Well, and then that makes sense because at that point it's like these are the corporations I'm trying to get to follow me. It's literally, I mean, they're basically what is it called? Influencers. Like
I
they're just
mean,
waiting for somebody to
you're
follow
probably not
them
far
to
off.
give to give them
Yeah.
money so that they can continue doing what they're doing, which is
Hmm.
exploring and doing all these things.
Yeah,
Which
getting
makes
like sponsorships.
yeah, is when well, and it is that beginning of like differentiating between different types of people, quote unquote, and
Hmm.
like judging people and giving people rights as a whole in groups versus like I don't know how to explain that, like treating people as other based on racism. Like, because it wasn't until we saw people different from us that we were like, oh shit, you don't deserve rights.
There's it's a little more complicated than that. Like the
Thank God for Evan.
English, the
Me,
English
educate.
and the Irish, for instance,
Yeah.
Oh, that is
have
true.
like,
They do
It was
not like
tribal
each other.
first, right? Like,
yeah, like it goes back hundreds of years, even, you know.
They just found more people to fight against, essentially, then.
Yeah, and it's all about land and
Money,
colonizing and
resources.
class connections
I
and
mean, truthfully, it's why in alien movies so often you see the entire Earth unite together. I mean, it's the same principle. You found a new common enemy, and
yeah,
now you can unite under that banner.
yeah.
Which makes sense once they united all of the same, like, all of the different white people
Yeah.
to the same type of white people. Then it was like,
Mm.
the people of color are the problem.
Oh yeah, and
Exactly.
you read that in Cast, right? About how like sometimes the question is what's your ethnicity or what's your heritage just to determine what your level of whiteness is. Like try to like figure out how close or low because like Irish and Italian for a long time was at the very low end. So if that's what you were in schools with African Americans and black children and lots of that kind of stuff.
Well, and you know what? And the way that a lot of Jewish people have been treated has been, I didn't realize how aggressive, like how aggressively separate Jewish people have been treated for a really long time in different parts of the world. I don't know, maybe it's just my own ignorance of, from not living in that era. But I've been reading a lot of Stephen King books and like the way that he talks about just like the anti-Semitism and how strong it is. And I'm like, we just keep some of us just keep finding reasons to hate other people just to take their
Mhm.
stuff.
You know what I think would be a really fun kind of like section to this is if you would if you would include Karina like people you might be surprised were alive during this time period, right? Because like, you know, there are tons of things that Albert Einstein was around to see that you wouldn't have expected or, because when I think about anti-Semitism, of course Stephen King would have seen it. He's so old. No offense to Stephen King, but he's so
He's
old.
so old.
He's so old. That would have still been, that
Very prevalent.
yeah,
Yeah.
that would have been prevalent.
It is kind of wild. And it is wild how blatantly clear a lot of people used to be about their hatred.
Well,
And
they
now
want to be
it's like,
again. They
and
want to be
now they
again.
do it
Hmm.
behind a ballot box and then they to your face or a different way. But that is neither here nor there. We're just gonna rabbit hole, guys. But
I
with
still
that,
will. Oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I
No.
was just gonna say I'll never forget the people at Trump holding their Trump flags that I flipped off last year. I want to say, yeah, because that was during the election. And they yelled, "Go back to Cuba, you commie," because I'm tan. I was tan at the time. And I was on the phone with my grandma. And well, Karina knows, we're both Mexican. And I couldn't stop laughing. I said, "Did you hear that, Grandma? We're from Cuba now." I said, "We're Cuban."
Did you know?
I said I could not stop laughing.
Did you know about this?
I was like, isn't this great? They will find reasons.
No, they will. They will.
Hmm.
People are always
Yeah.
going to find, well, I mean, there you go. People are always going to find reasons to be hateful. You just got to keep doing you. That's it. So, as always, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the Sip and Saga Society. If you have any histories, mysteries, or stories think that that you think should be told, feel free to DM us on Instagram or Facebook at sipandsaga_society or visit our website at sipandsaga.com. And keep an eye out or an ear out for our community circles and our book club. And I'm so excited for our next episode. But for now, bye.
Bye.
Bye. Adios.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. That was a good one, guys. I really liked it.
Mhm.